Hey there. Welcome to Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 25. I'm Mike.
I'm Chad.
And the toys we're going to talk about today.
More
of my toys, because you're still not allowed to buy
I'm
any.
still not allowed to buy it. Rough couple months.
Yeah. Well, me too. I don't want to repeat. I can't remember if I said this last episode, but I know you had tuition.
Yeah.
My wife just booked us a trip down south for just a couple months from now. So I've got to come up with the money for that trip, and I'm like, oh man, I've got to stop. I'm going to stop buying toys for a while. So I'm going to try to cut back, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so we just filmed an episode previously, and we talked about the new toys that I've got for 2023.
Yep.
Now, we almost made it through them, but I have a couple more I want to show you, and then we're going to get into the box that I got from Big Bad Toy Store the other day. So more new stuff. All right, so these are some other things that I picked up in the first couple of weeks of the year. I'll just be really quick about this guy, but I got Space Sumo.
Yeah.
So this is a Masters of the Universe character, and this guy was only available on their website. Maddie, it's not Maddie Collector anymore. Was it Maddie? I don't know.
I wouldn't know.
They have a collector-specific website. I think it's Mattel Collection. I forget it right now. But I don't know. I kind of wish they wouldn't do this. It's becoming kind of a pain in the ass because they keep making figures that you can only buy on their website and they sell it really quick. And you end up having to pay. Like these figures in store are about $20 or so. But when you buy them on the website, probably costs about the same. But then it's
price conversion.
It's about $20 in shipping. And you have to. It's not like I can buy multiple things because there's only one thing on sale at that given time. And so instead of paying $20 US, which ends up being like 26 or something for us, it's like, okay, so I'm paying like 50 US with the shipping, and it ends up being like 60. So anyway, this shitty little figure cost me way too much money.
And then you could get dinged with customs.
Yeah, I might get dinged with customs at the border. It's the whole thing. And it's one thing if the character is an essential one, which pisses me off too, because you shouldn't, if it's an essential character, people shouldn't have to jump through those hoops.
Right.
Make it available in the store. So this is the kind of character which I would not define as essential. Like this is the kind of character most Masters of the Universe fans don't need. They probably don't even know who he is. And I'm not trying to sound superior because I didn't know who he was a couple of months ago. So he's not essential to anyone's collection. But I'm kind of a completist. I've got a pretty close to complete collection at this point in time. So I thought, well, what the hell? So I ordered them. And I already ordered a second. Like they did another one since that. So I've got, I think his name's Frogman. But he's another non-essential character. And before that, it was Camo Con.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I talked about him already or not.
I think he did.
But so, and then before that it was Wondar, and before that it was Goldar, whatever. It's just like, all right, like these, I don't want to have to be buying one of these stupid figures online every month. So anyway, so Space Sumo, I probably won't do an insert with him because I'm going to do an episode specific to my new Masters of the Universe figures very soon, and I'll just talk about him then. I've got a couple new Transformers. I was in Walmart the other day, and I saw this Alita 1 figure, and I thought, at the time, I was thinking, this is going to be my first brand new toy of 2023. And I bought her thinking that she was a brand new figure, and I realized she actually came out a couple of waves ago, technically in 2022, but I had never seen her in the wild before, and I probably could have pre-ordered her, because I've already owned other figures from the same wave for a couple of months. But I don't know. When I saw her up for pre-order, it just didn't even register for me so I had completely basically forgotten about her.
What's her name?
Alita 1.
Okay.
But anyway, when I saw her in the store, I was smitten with her. I was like, that's a gorgeous little Transformer figure. I love it. And you'll see I've got another version over there. You guys will see it when I do
I like that version.
But see, it doesn't look as much like her. I just think this one is like nice and cute. It's a lot more like feminine.
I thought it was RC actually.
Like I always sound weird. I feel weird saying this sort of stuff because I'm not into anything kinky with my Transformers. But like, I think she is like the prettiest like Transformer that they've made thus far. They've made a couple of RCs, which is the most well-known female Transformer. Yeah. They've made some other ones. They made a whole combiner of female Transformers called Victorion or something. And they're often a little clunky and boxy, and if I didn't tell you it was a girl, you wouldn't even know the difference. But her, like, you can very clearly tell she's feminine, I think, with the colors and just with the design. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic figure, and I don't know why I had even, like, considered not buying her before. Why I didn't pre-order her months ago or anything.
I mean, not to sound like a pervert here, but she's cute.
Yeah. She's cute. I'm glad you're backing me up on that. But yeah, like, I love it. And she transforms into a really cute little car, too. That doesn't really matter to me because I never transform.
Transform your figures.
Yeah, but, like, when you see the pictures of what she transforms into, it's like it's a cute little car, the cute little colors. I like her translucent little blue weapons and everything. Yeah.
What about the feet?
Nice little feet. And it's like, yeah. I've talked before how I like figures with big feet. And that's mostly because I like figures that stand and don't fall. And sometimes you get, like, especially with female characters, they make them with little dainty ankles and they fall all over. But no, she's got a nice, good, solid base to stand on. Yeah, she's a great figure. I really like it. And then this guy I got, who I also really like. So this guy is Needlenose.
Yeah.
He is a Decepticon.
He's one of the Jets.
He's not maybe what you're thinking of. Maybe you know him better than I do, because he is a Jet. Yeah. But this guy came around pretty late in the Generation 1 stuff. Like, I don't remember this guy from when I was a kid.
I vaguely remember...
Like, I think he was a Target Master or a Headmaster or something, which I wasn't buying toys at that time. I'd kind of already moved on from Transformers. But this guy, this is one of those characters that was, like, given the spotlight in the comic books by IDW.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I was like, this character I had no interest in before, I all of a sudden became a fan of. I'm like, oh, I like this guy. He's fun. So I think they did a really good job of capturing his look from the comic books. He's true to the vintage toy, even though the vintage toy would have been much clunkier and boxier, but he's got all the aesthetics. I really like his helmet. It almost looks like he's got a
Optimus
medieval.
Prime.
Well, I'm thinking it looks almost like a knight's helmet. Like, it looks like that visor could come down.
Visor comes down.
Yeah, it is Optimus Prime-y, I guess. But yeah, I really dig this guy.
Yeah, he's super cool. I want to say he was a Headmaster.
Well, I'm thinking he might have been a Target Master, because this guy, you'll notice, he's got 2 Target Master buddies. Which is another thing that I found kind of surprising, in that a couple of years ago, Hasbro's focus was on the Headmasters and the Target Masters. And I think the standard price figures came with 1 Target Master, but if he came with 2, they would definitely tag on an extra like $10 on the price of the figure. This guy was a standard price figure, and he comes with 2 other Transformers. Like, both of his guns are little robots in and of themselves. They're not great robots. Like, they've kind of reduced the articulation in the Target Masters. I'll show you in the cut-in, but the Target Masters from a couple years ago had arms that moved and their legs moved independently. Now these guys are pretty much very rigid. Their legs move together. Their arms are not articulated. But still, you get 2 extra little characters for...
Nice, nice articulation on them, too. I like how the...
Yeah, Needlenose himself moves very well.
Yeah, the arms are... Huh. Yeah, and you said you got him at Walmart?
No, I got him at GameStop, I think.
GameStop, right.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So let's take a quick closer look at my new Transformers, starting with Alita 1. So hopefully you can see what me and Chad were talking about here, in that she is a very feminine, and as far as Transformers go, a very pretty robot. Like, her face is very, like, slender, just her features, she's all very feminine. The shape of her, she's not too bulky. She's got thin little hips and all that sort of stuff. It's very feminine, and I think it's a great figure. I really like it. And as I mentioned, this was not a figure that was on my radar. Like, I must have seen that this was one of the figures coming out last year, but I just brushed right past it. Partly because this isn't a character that I have a ton of attachment to. Like, she's been around since the G1 cartoon when I was a kid, but she wasn't really part of the main Autobot team. She only appeared in a couple of episodes, originally like a flashback. She was Optimus Prime's girlfriend on Cybertron before they left for Earth. And yeah, it was only when I saw this in store that I thought, wow, that is a great looking little figure. and I just kind of had to pick it up. Now, this is only the second ever official release of Alita 1. They never made a toy of her in the vintage line. The first toy of her was a BotCon exclusive, and even that was, I want to say, like 2018 or so. So it took a long time from when she first appeared in the 80s until she got her first ever action figure. And those BotCon figures, those were toys that were put together exclusively by the Transformers fan club, and they would just take an existing figure, repaint it, maybe retool some parts. They were only available to people that attended the cons, so they weren't made like for wide release. And you could argue whether they're official releases or not. So the first ever Alita 1 came out in what was it? I don't know. Maybe this one was the 2018 release, actually. So this is, I think it was part of the Power of the Primes series. So you can see how much larger that figure is. And I thought it was a pretty good figure. Like, I still think it holds up. Which is partly why this one didn't really register for me, because I don't really want to buy every single version of every Transformer that comes out. Usually when I get one I'm happy with, I say that's it. This is the last one I'm going to buy of that character. And since I wasn't a huge fan of Alita 1, I had this figure here, which I thought was decent. And so I thought, that's all I need. I don't need to upgrade this one. And I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't seen her in store and kind of, became totally impressed with this little figure. But like this one here, like, it's not bad, and I still think it's feminine, but it is a lot bigger and bulkier. They have come a long way. Just to give you an idea of what I was talking about with other female Transformers in the past, like here's one, and I guess you can tell she's a female because if you get up close, she's got like lipstick on and some sort of eye makeup, I guess. But otherwise, as far as the shape of her body and stuff, it's still pretty blocky and not very feminine. And that's probably because this body was reused from a male character. And that's just kind of the way it goes. So I think you can see that leaps and bounds better with this new RC. Or not RC, sorry, of Alita 1. And yeah, I just think she's adorable. I love the color palette. So I like the clear blue guns. They're different weapons. So she's got two of them. Yeah, like not too many. Like, she does have some kibble, like the whole front of the car is kind of hanging off the back, but I don't think it looks bad. Otherwise, like, her legs aren't too busy with kibble and everything hanging off them. I think she is a really great figure, so very pleased with her. Now, Needlenose. So me and Chad weren't sure when we were talking about him earlier, but he is indeed a Target Master. So that means in the vintage line, that was one of the gimmicks they had where his gun was a separate little Transformer in and of itself. So yeah, Target Master first came out in 1988. So that was, I wasn't buying Transformers at the time, so I wasn't really familiar with this guy. And again, this is his first official figure since that original 1988 figure. There was a BotCon version of him as well. But yeah, this is the first one that you could buy in stores since 1988. And I think he looks great. I love that helmet design. Like I said, that's the medieval kind of visor that looks like it could slide down over his eyes or something. He's very well articulated. You can move his arms in pretty much every direction. So much better than the vintage toys, which were big hunks of plastic that could barely move anywhere. He's got a fair bit of kibble, I guess you could say. It almost looks like the whole plane is just tucked onto his back. But again, I don't think it looks bad. I think it kind of, it's true to his design. It's not... I don't like it when a character in the cartoon looks nice and sleek and then the toy has all this extra junk hanging off of him. But where this character, he doesn't have a, super recognizable appearance from the cartoon or anything. So this doesn't bother me that he's got the whole plane hanging off the back. Now, he does have some hollow parts here, which I don't love. Like, it would be nice if there was an extra flap that folded over to fill in those hollow spaces. But regardless, I still think he's a really great figure. He moves well. He looks good. He feels good. I find some of these legacy toys feel a little cheaper than the toys we've got in the past few years. But Needlenose feels great. And we'll talk about his Target Masters here for a second. And their names, I think it's Zigzag and Sunbeam, oddly enough. So you can see here, that's them as guns. Nothing too elaborate. They're actually, pretty shitty looking guns. But to turn them into robots, you just fold the gun down. There you go. Robot. Same as this guy. Fold this piece in. Robot. Now, that's fine. Like, they're pretty basic. They're pretty simple. You know, they don't move. Their arms don't move. Their heads don't turn. Their legs, this guy's legs don't move at all. And neither does that guy. So they're completely stationary. And that doesn't really bother me because I'm probably going to display them as guns in his hand anyway. But just to give you an idea what I was talking about with the Target Masters from just a couple of years ago. So this guy here, he also transformed into a gun. You pulled that up, you folded his legs around like so. I don't... But anyway, you can see here, like, the arms move, good range of motion, the legs move. I think the head, no, his head doesn't turn. I think it might have on some of them. Different paint apps and everything. So, yeah, the Target Masters of a couple of years ago were far superior to the ones we're getting now. But it doesn't really bother me that much. So, yeah, both great figures. I would recommend both of these guys. So that was all the stuff I picked up. Well, that was the last of it. We covered most of it last episode. But so those were the tail end of the things that I picked up at various stores over the course of January. Now, this last thing we're going to talk about, this is the box that I got from Big Bad Toy Store. So this is my first big shipment of the year. So
this is the one we were supposed to do on the episode where I had to reschedule, right?
Yeah, I invited you over, and it's been tough. Yeah. But I started opening some of this stuff, but I haven't opened all of it. So I've been sitting on this stuff for a week, and I haven't opened it. So one of the ones I have not opened. So I got a reaction figure from Super 7. So this is those 5-point of articulation. I have a whole lot of them. So this is Vincent Price as a reaction figure. He comes with a little raven.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know Vincent Price?
I'm joking. Yes, okay. I know who Vincent Price is.
I never know you.
I know.
You're just a kid. You know, you might not know who Vincent Price is.
Ambiguous. I'm like 5 years younger than you.
But if you are younger than us,
yeah,
you probably don't know who Vincent Price is. He's just kind of synonymous with like old horror movies. Like he starred in old horror movies, but he also became just kind of like a host of horror movies. Kind of my first exposure to him was, I think, probably the Michael Jackson Thriller video. So I assume he's probably even on the, like, even if you've never seen the video, which you should see. I don't often promote Michael Jackson, but the Michael Jackson Thriller video was fantastic of its time, you know. And I think even on the record, because I had the vinyl back when I was a kid, you have that whole Vincent Price voiceover. Yeah. And he's going on about, oh, the dead will rise and they'll crawl from the earth or whatever. And he does this like really great voiceover.
And the laugh.
Yeah, the cackle he does at the end. Anyway, like, yeah, it describes him here as a mild-mannered man turned horror icon. So, yeah, like, he himself is not like there's no movie called Vincent Price or anything. But yeah, he was just in so many old horror movies. And this packaging, the style, it matches up with the Universal Monsters that I have up there. So it's kind of cool to be able to... I'm probably going to open this figure, but once I do, I'm probably going to pin this card up on the wall, and he'll get to sit up there with other icons like Frankenstein and Dracula and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of cool that he's up there with the other classics.
Yeah, he's a super cool pickup.
Yeah.
They did a good job on the face, too. Sometimes I find with the reaction figures is they can get a little dirt-faced. Not so much with him.
Yeah.
And even the paint app is good, too, because I know when I buy them in the store, I'm looking over, like, however many they have to find the best paint app, because sometimes you'll get, like, the clear little black spots.
Yeah. Now, you might know this better than me, because I think you're kind of a Simpsons guy, aren't you? In one of the Treehouse of Horrors where they did the Raven, did he do the voice work in that, or am I...
Yes, I believe he did.
Yeah. Because he comes with a Raven, which I'm honestly, I'm not going to pretend to be a Vincent Price expert. Like, because the Raven I would associate with Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Yeah. And in my mind, I think he did narrate the Simpsons episode. But I wouldn't be surprised if he played, like, but, like, The Raven isn't long enough of a story. I don't think they've ever done it as a movie.
No, I don't think so.
So I don't know. Like, I don't know why they stuck that Raven in there with them. Like, it seems like that would have been a more appropriate accessory for an Edgar Allan Poe figure. But anyway, it's cool. I like it. Now here's a closer look at my Vincent Price reaction figure. As you can see, since Chad was over, I have opened up the packaging on this guy. But what I do with a lot of my reaction figures is I just slice the side of the bubble, so I pop it open like that. But I kept it intact, so if I decide to pin this to my wall and I want to put Vincent Price in there, I can still do it, and it still, appears to be, sealed up. But I don't know. I used to do that with all my reaction figures, but since I've gotten so many more of them recently, I've started just keeping them in a big bin, which is kind of fun. It reminds me of my old toy box when I was a kid. It's just a whole bunch of miscellaneous properties all mashed in there together. Anyway, so let's take a look at the figure. So this guy looks pretty great. Like, that likeness for such a simple figure, I think is really well done. Like the paint job on his eyes there, the little arched eyebrows, the thin little mustache, and just like the shape of his face, like the sculpting there. Like, it definitely looks like Vincent Price, and I'm super impressed. Now, there's not much to the body there. He's just got a black suit on, a little neckerchief. But, yeah, I don't know what else I would put him in. I think this is a nice kind of basic Vincent Price. I'm not entirely sure if it's based on a particular movie. It might be based on his look from The Raven, since he came with a Raven accessory. And when me and Chad were talking, we claimed not to be Vincent Price experts, but we weren't sure if he had ever done a movie with The Raven. But as you might have noticed, as I was going through doing my editing, I did find that yes, he did indeed star in a movie, The Raven, based on Edgar Allan Poe's story or short story or poem. And yeah, so as for the accessory, that's all he's got is this one little raven. No paint apps on this guy. It's nice sculpting though, like he's got layered feathers and all that stuff, so he's pretty cool. But one thing that I find kind of annoying is that his feet, like the way he was in the package is he was perched up on Vincent's shoulder, and I thought there was going to be some little pegs on his feet and little peg holes on his shoulder, because that's what they did with the shipwreck figure from the G.I. Joe line. He had little pegs on his parrot, and it clipped onto his shoulder like that. So I'm really kind of surprised they didn't do this here, because now if I choose to display him on a shelf, the Raven just kind of has to float around on the floor. I think it would look a lot better perched up on his shoulder. But regardless, another cool little figure. I would recommend it for sure. This one I'm disappointed in. Yeah. Because so my all-time favorite movie is The Crow. And I have a Crow reaction figure, and he's pinned up on the wall right there.
Yep.
And he's kind of goofy looking, because reaction figures in the early days, they weren't trying as hard. Like, it worked okay for monsters and aliens and like Dracula and Wolfman stuff, but when you had a human character and you were trying to capture their look, they were really lazy. Like, they looked
derpy.
Yeah, he looks derpy. So my Crow, he looks derpy, which is kind of a bummer. But now, like, this Vincent Price, I think looks great. Like, it looks like Vincent Price. So there's another company, it's Mezco, that has a similar line. They call it 5 points, because they have 5 points of articulation, just like a reaction figure. So my only 5 points figures are their Godzilla figures. And really, like, I have the Super 7 reaction figures of Godzilla, which are really simplified, kind of derpy looking Godzillas. And then the 5 points for Mezco are amazing. Like, they're a little bit bigger, but they still only have 5 points for articulation. They came with all kinds of extra parts, so you can swap out their heads and give them atomic breath and swap out their arms. But they look screen accurate. Like, they look so good. And so I've been really torn. I'm like, am I going to collect both of those lines going forward? Because I like the kind of simplicity of the Super 7 stuff, but I also really appreciate the screen accurate of Mezco. Anyway, Mezco had their own version of the Crow as part of their 5 points line. And I was like, I'm not going to do this with every reaction figure out there, but I'm like, the Crow, I'm a big enough...
That's your thing.
That's my thing, that I'm like, I would really like to have a really nice screen accurate one that doesn't look as derpy as that one. So I ordered it, and it's actually a 2-pack of figures. So you get the Crow in his trench coat and without his trench coat.
Okay.
And he also comes with extra arms and legs, which is something Mezco does. because they're not posable very much, but there are some iconic poses that the Crow has in the movie, like when he does this. So they give you extra arms because his arms are really move like this. So they give you an extra set of arms that you plug in that are
Which
out
is cool.
like this. So if you want to just stand them on your shelf, you can create a couple different looks for them. So I'll cut in a closer look at the box. But so you get kind of a neutral pose and then a wider stance. So I opened this up, and this is the one I was disappointed with. And it's not that they're bad figures, but I just find they look...
Oh, tiny.
Yeah, they look like a scale of their own. Like, I kind of felt like I could display them with reaction figures, like, side by side, but, like, it feels like...
Oh, no.
Yeah, like, they just feel like a whole different scale. And it's really not... As far as height-wise, it looks like it's probably pretty close, but he just looks so much thinner. Like he looks like he's got real people proportions where these figures don't. These are done kind of cartoony. And so yeah, it came in this little 2-pack. So here's the other one with his arms open and
like that one looks a bit thicker, but
still, like, comparatively, like, I couldn't display him with Vincent Price or with anybody. They look like they're from completely different lines. Whereas with my Godzillas, I felt like you can kind of display them together, the Mezco and the Super 7 stuff.
I mean, I will say that for something so tiny, their paint apps on the face are very good.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't want it to sound like I'm knocking Mezco or that these are bad figures. They're actually, if you just want a little Crow to put on your desk, these are really nice, and they are way better than the reaction figure. But I just don't really like things that don't fit into my collection. Like, I'm running out of space here. This room is full. I also have some glass IKEA cabinets out there. They're jam-packed. And getting things that don't really fit into my aesthetic, it becomes a little problematic. Like those DC Superpowers figures from McFarlane. Like, they're kind of an awkward scale. They don't really fit with my existing DC collection. So they're kind of a thing on their own. They require like a new space. Yeah. And another figure I bought last year is that Death Dealer figure. Mm-hmm. That was another thing that's like, he's not from a line of anything. He's just like a standalone figure, but he's at a weird scale. He was like 5 inches. So he's bigger than my G.I. Joes, but he's smaller than my like Masters of the Universe. And I'm just like, I don't know where to put this guy. He doesn't look right next to anything. And that's what these guys are like. They're great little one-offs, but they feel like they're entirely their own thing, and I don't know where to put them. So, if I had seen these outside the packaging, I wouldn't have bought them. As much as I like them, they just don't fit anywhere for me. Similarly, like you have that 112 Batman.
Yes, I do.
We reviewed it on one of our first episodes together. And which you got it by accident. Yeah. So you had ordered one Batman figure, but Big Bad Toy Store sent you another, and it was part of Mezco's, actually, the same company.
Yeah, it was 112.
So Mezco makes these 112 figures, and 112 is the scale, so they're 6 inches tall. And they made a 112 Crow figure. Okay. And I thought it looked amazing. Like, he comes with all kinds of cool accessories. He's got interchangeable heads and interchangeable hands, and his coat comes off. And he comes with the flame effect in the movie. He like throws a match on the ground and the shape of a crow lights up and flames around him. You have this translucent crow that you can put on the ground. Like, tons of cool stuff. I really think it's an amazing figure, but I didn't buy it because it's in like it's 112, which is 6-inch scale, which is in line with a lot of my collectibles. But he's got a cloth clothing. It's like a Mego doll from the 70s, sort of. And he just doesn't fit in with anything else I have on display. So as much as I think that figure is brilliant, and if I had got it last year, it might have been my toy of the year, I just couldn't bring myself to bring in this new weird scale. Yeah. Anyway, I've beat the point to death, but these things also just feel weird. I don't know where to put them in my collection.
That's unfortunate.
So here's a closer look at my 5 Points Crow figures from Mezco. And so yeah, we'll take a look at the details of them here. So for a figure this small, I think the paint detail is pretty good. I don't love the face on this one. He looks a little I don't know. He doesn't look serious enough, maybe. It's kind of a blank stare. But otherwise, the sculpting's nice. Like, he's got all those holes in the shirt where he's got the electrical tape wrapped around him. Like, you can see the change in the black textures from his shirt to the tape. You know, they've got a different type of sheen on them. And yeah, he's got that twine wrapped around him and everything. So that's all very movie accurate. His boots are kind of, you know, just loosely hanging untied off of him. All very true to the movie. You know, looks pretty good. Now, the other one, I prefer this one, I think. So the head sculpt on this one has just got a little bit more personality because he's got that kind of crazed smile. He looks like he's about to hurt you, perhaps. And yes, this one here, he's got the jacket, which isn't removable. Like, it's soft plastic, and you can open it that much, but then it seems to be like glued to him right around there. So he's got his little engagement ring on the necklace, which is really cool. And then the arms on this one, you know, they're obviously baggier because he's got the leather jacket on. And yeah, looks really cool. Now, as far as the extra parts go, so for the jacket version, you've got these extra arms. So you can have him with his kind of arms presented outwards, which I will change over in a second. And he also has this pointing hand, which is kind of cool. And they also have these display bases, by the way, which is always appreciated. So you can just pop his arm off. Very simple. You plug this one in, and there you go. Now he can be calling out the next guy that he's going to crack his head open. So that's very cool. And then for the open arms, it just works like so. Oops. So there you go. Now he's got his open arms. So yeah, very cool. And then for the other one, he came with an extra set of legs. So you can see right now he's standing rather neutrally. He's got these legs here, which are supposed to create, I think, kind of the iconic pose from the poster where he's walking towards you. But I don't think they really accomplished that. I barely noticed the difference, to be honest. So if I take these legs off, plug these in, like, his legs are still far enough apart. I would kind of expect them to be more like that or something. But, yeah, like, they're slightly, you can see the way they're sculpted. You're kind of supposed to pose them more in a walking position. But I don't think that was really a necessary inclusion. It seems like kind of a waste to me. But, yeah, so those are the crows. And as I was saying earlier, I don't think these are bad figures at all. Like, the fact that you get two of them, you get all these different display options, like, it's pretty good bang for your buck. But I'd like to display these guys with my reaction figures. And probably the best figure to display it next to is Super 7's Crow reaction figure. Now you can see he looks terrible. Like, that face sculpt is brutal. And otherwise, you can see they tried to capture all the same detail. The twine, the tears, the engagement ring. But it's just a more simplified, cartoonier version. Not like these little screen accurate ones. And they just, to me, they don't look like they're from the same world. It's maybe not as bad as I was making it sound. Like, they are the same height. When I first took these guys out of the package, I thought for sure they were like at least a half inch shorter. But they seem to be, scale-wise, to be relatively on par with the reactions. Let's bring Vincent Price out here again. So you can see, scale-wise, how they size up. Here's one of Hasbro's like Marvel figures. You know, so I always found they worked really well with reactions. They seem to have that similar aesthetic. But the Crow just doesn't. So scale-wise, I guess he's not so bad. But it's just, yeah, the body type and everything, it's a little too realistically proportioned that he looks very odd with these other figures. So I've already beat that point to death, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But yeah, for just if you just want a little Crow figure for your desk, again, I think these are really cool. I like that you've got the display options. It wasn't that expensive of a set, I don't think. So yeah, I guess I would give it my thumbs up if you're into the Crow. And one more thing I'm going to mention before I move on from these guys is as good a set as the Mezco set was with all the extra arms and everything. If there was one accessory that seemed to be lacking, it was the Crow companion of Eric Draven. So it's pretty handy that I have this Raven from the Edgar Allan Poe figure, because you can pair these guys together quite nicely. I've got another, I already opened her up here, but this is another Masterverse figure.
Evil-Lyn?
Evil-Lyn. Now, did you watch Masters of the Universe Revelation?
I got about halfway through it, and then I just got busy and didn't finish.
Okay, because, again, I'm not like a toy pervert. I always feel I need to preface that. But, like, we all had crushes on some cartoon character when we were kids. And, you know, I always liked Evil-Lyn, but, like, the cartoon version of her in the 80s wasn't particularly attractive or anything like that. But in this new cartoon, she goes through a couple of different looks. She starts off as kind of a good guy. She's got rid of her headdress. She's got like long, white, flowing hair. And it's a look we hadn't seen for her before. And I'm like, she looks kind of good like this. But then she reverts back to her kind of standard bad guy outfit that we know from the 80s. I'm like, okay, she looks good like that. But then she gets powered up and she gets this new outfit, which is this bat cowl, which is a look we've never seen for her before. So this is a brand new look from the new cartoon. And I thought it looked really good. I was like, as far as cartoon characters go, she was looking very attractive in this bat outfit. And so I thought, I'm going to buy this figure. But I'm disappointed with her because the look just doesn't translate. Like, she's wearing this kind of, like, essentially lingerie.
Yeah.
But they just painted it on her. And it looks painted on her. Like, it doesn't look like
you can tell.
It doesn't look like she's wearing real clothes. And, like, the lines, they're painted over seams. So, like, when you pose her arms or anything, the seams don't match up anymore. It's just a poorly done figure. I think if they had sculpted some of the stuff on her to give her, like, make her boots actually have a ridge separate from her leg, but instead they just painted a black line on her leg, say that's her boot. And it's kind of a disappointing figure, to be honest with you.
That's unfortunate. I know.
Like, I still think her head sculpt is nice.
Yeah, the head sculpt is nice.
But yeah, it's just the body it looks weird. Looks like she's wearing a Halloween costume.
Like, a painted on Halloween costume.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a figure of somebody that is pretending to be Halloween, like pretending to be Evil-Lyn for Halloween. It's something off about it. So that's kind of too bad. Now we're going to take a quick closer look at my new Evil-Lyn figure. So, as I said earlier, like, I really liked this design when I saw it in the animation. And I thought, well, if there's one figure from this whole cartoon that I'm going to want to buy, well, I was going to buy Merman regardless. Merman's my all-time favorite character. But I really didn't want to buy any other characters. And that's not really a knock on the show or the figures at all. I think the show was actually pretty good, despite a lot of the hate that it got. And I think a lot of the figures are actually pretty great. It's just that I already have a very complete collection of my Masters Universe Classics, and I'm now currently working on a complete collection of my Masters of the Universe Origins. I also have a whole bunch of them as Funko Pops and a whole bunch of them as reaction figures. I just didn't really see the point of getting into another line of Masters of the Universe. But I did end up buying a few more of them than I intended. I have Stinkor, I have Scareglow, I have Triclops. Anyway, here's just a smattering of Evil-Lyns that I have in my collection. And these are some of the different looks she's had over the years. So this yellow one, this is the new like Origins figure, but it's based on the vintage toy of the 80s. So that's the only Evil-Lyn toy you could get in the 80s. She had this bright yellow skin, the blue outfit. It did not match up with the animation, which had her with a much more natural skin tone. But it is what it is. In the Origins line now, you can get her in both the yellow and the natural skin tone. I have both. And, you know, it's the look that a lot of people associate with Evil-Lyn. In the Classics line that started in 2009 and ran for about 10 years, which I'm a big fan of, is this figure here. So there was a couple Evil-Lyns released in that series as well. This one here, I've got displayed without her familiar helmet, this thing here. it did come with the optional head, so you could display her with or without the helmet. But I have the yellow one, which is this same figure except painted with these colors. I have that one displayed with her headdress on, her helmet. So this one here I decided to keep with her helmet off because I really liked the short white hair that they kind of they introduced. I think it was during the 2002 animated series and stuff. And I really like that look on Evil-Lyn. And then when the Revelation line started, the first figure they put out of Evil-Lyn was this one here with the long flowing white hair. And I thought it looked pretty good. Plus I thought, well, it looks different enough from any of the other Evil-Lyns in my collection that I felt justified in buying this. And now I've got this new one dressed up in the Bat outfit. And I really, really wanted to like it. But I think you can see how it's lacking in some ways. So the head sculpt is nice. I think this bat cowl is well done. The sculpting all through it, the way the teeth kind of hang over her face, that looks pretty accurate, I think, to the animation. I love the big furry collar around it. Looks really good. So I don't regret buying this figure. I don't think it's terrible. But yeah, then from the neck down, I think it kind of looks like shit a little bit. Like this kind of whole lingerie outfit that she's wearing, I think if they had sculpted, if you could feel that ridge as you ran your finger along it, but you can't. They just took basically a plain, leg, which you could have used for somebody in tights or somebody with bare skin, and then they just painted these seams on it. So as you pose her, you can see the seams stop lining up, and it looks cheap. And it doesn't capture that, I imagine this is supposed to be kind of almost like a see-through type lace material on her. I just don't really think it comes across that way. I think it just ends up looking kind of weird. And if you were to get one Evil-Lyn from the Revelation line, I would still recommend this one here over that one because, I think it also has a great head sculpt. And I think the design of the costume works so much better on that figure. So yeah, for accessories, I think she might have come with some extra hands as well as her little wand. And then she's got this cape. Now, I didn't attach it quite properly. It's got multiple elastic, so you can attach that at her wrist and again at her mid-arm. But I just put it on her wrist and it seems to stay in place pretty good. But if that looks a little odd with these things hanging up, that's because you're supposed to wrap those around her arms, which would probably help it stay in place even better. But anyway, so it's an okay figure, but I think it could have been a lot better. Then I got a couple Masters of the Universe Origins figures. So we talked about... Did we talk about Space Sumo this episode or last episode?
Last episode.
Did we?
No, it might have been this one.
Yeah.
I feel like it was this one.
Anyway, Space Sumo, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about him, but the reason nobody knows who this guy is because there was a knockoff He-Man line called Sunman in the 80s, and basically its gimmick was, we're like He-Man except with ethnic minorities. So all the characters were like black guys and Chinese guys and indigenous people and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, Mattel bought up Sunman. I don't know exactly how it all works. But anyway, they're integrating the Sunman characters into Masters of the Universe. So I already have Sunman. I reviewed him before. Then there's Space Sumo. He's an Asian guy. And then I got this guy. So this is Boltman, who I think he's either Mexican or an Indian. I don't know.
I don't want to take a guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, so this guy, he's... at first I thought he was Native American, but then when I look at him, I'm like, he looks like maybe he's got like some Mayan motif to him or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'm all for them kind of adding some minorities. But at the same time, I thought these characters were kind of boring, and I was intending to skip them all. Yeah. So this guy was part of a wave of 4 figures, and I bought the other 3, which were well-known figures. And I bought those guys. I've had them for like 2 months. But almost immediately afterwards, I was like, why didn't I buy Boltman? I should have just bought him. And so I haven't been able to review that wave of figures because I wanted to get Boltman in so I could review the whole wave. Anyway, and I gotta say, I do like him. I like him quite a lot. I don't know what... There's nothing particularly special about him. I don't know what his gimmick is. He's got lightning bolts in his backpack that he can throw at you. But he just... I don't know. He looks different. He doesn't look like any other Master of the Universe character that I have. I kind of like his bright aqua blue.
I'm sure Tony Danza would agree.
Yeah. Maybe he's Italian. I don't know.
Hard to say.
But anyway, you'll see him when I do a close-up of him. I like him. I don't know. I like him better than Space Sumo.
Yeah, he's definitely got the one up there.
Although even Space Sumo's got kind of a unique thing. He's got this big, stupid rubber ninja mask. But you can take it off, and he's this Asian guy with a flat top. He's kind of fun in his own right. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about these guys in another episode. So let's move on. I get a new Spawn from Mortal Kombat.
Ooh.
Now, if you remember, one of the last toys I got of 2022, because I thought I was kind of done shopping, but then my boss at work gave me a gift card for Amazon for $40. And so it was like, I was like, oh man, what's the last toy I'm going to buy? And I ran it by you. I was like, should I buy this Springer Transformer, this Star Wars dude, what's his name? The Boba Fett dressed up guy.
The Boba Fett dressed up guy.
Yeah. You know, the guy that wears Boba Fett's armor.
Cobb Vanth.
Cobb Vanth. So I was like, do I buy Cobb Vanth? Do I buy Springer? Or do I buy this Mortal Kombat Spawn? I went with Springer. I still don't have Cobb Vanth. But I bought this Spawn here now. And I'm glad I did. Because he is cool.
Pretty cool.
Pretty.
And he's a
Pretty
McFarlane.
cool. Well, the thing is, like, I've been buying Spawn figures in the last 2 years or so. And I've been liking what they've been putting out for the most part. They're not perfect. I find some of the proportions are a little weird. But, like, I got a new Violator. I got a new She-Spawn. I got Haunt. I got Plague Spawn. I got Redeemer. I got Dark Redeemer. So I'm starting to build this nice little world of Spawn figures. But I didn't really feel like I had a good Spawn. And the kind of annoying thing about that is this whole new wave of Spawn figures basically launched from a Kickstarter that he had done.
Yeah.
And I bought that Kickstarter. I actually bought 2 of the Spawns. They were kind of expensive. They came in these big, elaborate boxes. It was a beautiful Spawn figure with a big flowing cape. He was one of my top 10 figures of 2020. But the thing is, the cape, when they advertised this figure, they said it was going to be removable. But when you got it in hand, it actually wasn't. And the cape is this big, gigantic, flowing thing like this, which is how it looks in the comic books when McFarlane draws him. But it totally limited all the articulation of the figure, because he had all these joints on him, but you couldn't get your hand in there or bend his elbow or something because his cape was all draped around him. So it basically turned into a statue. So I have this really nice looking Spawn statue with all my new action figures in front of him, but I was like, I want a Spawn that I could actually play with and like move his arms. And so anyway, when I saw this Spawn, I thought this is pretty nice looking, because a lot of the Spawn figures they're doing, the other ones in this Mortal Kombat line, he's all like fleshy and textured, where I like a nice smooth Spawn that looks more like, you know, his first appearance, a superhero rather than a monster. And so this one here is nice and smooth. The cape is not, it's more like that Superman cape we talked about in the last episode. It's out of the way, like you can still pose him, and anyway, I like it quite a bit. So
he's cool. I agree.
Although and yeah, he has a display base. He has chains. I'll do a close up.
Only one display base though, right? And it's
the same size. One little black circle, which is pretty standard for McFarlane toys. Head sculpt great. I love it. I like the colors. The red could stand to be a little brighter.
Yeah,
he's kind of it's kind of dark, but he's got the weirdest bit of articulation I think I've ever seen.
Oh dear.
Like. And it doesn't look bad, and it doesn't even... I don't even know if it bothers me, but, like, what is going on with his shoulders? Like, just mess around with him a little bit. Like, feel his shoulders and stuff. It's...
Oh, that is weird.
He's got this weird hoop around the top of his shoulders that, like, goes into the socket when you move him.
Oh, yeah, no.
But it's just, like, this weird floating shoulder. And I'm like, what is this? Like, it's super weird. Like, I've never seen that before. And I
wonder if it's just to hide the joints there, because...
I guess. That's why I said, like, I don't even know if I don't like it. Like, it doesn't look super noticeable. It doesn't really hinder the movement. If anything, it probably helps it some. Yeah. But it's just so weird. You can feel it moving around, and it's just like, I've never seen a joint like that. So, just very weird. But, Cool looking figure.
He is cool.
So let's take a closer look at this Spawn figure. So I think this figure is really great, and he was quite affordable too. McFarlane has been doing a very good job at keeping his action figures affordable. He makes the DC Multiverse as well as the Spawn figures and a couple of other lines as well. And as far as the 6-7 inch action figures go, of this amount of detail and articulation, they're far cheaper than the stuff coming out from Hasbro and other companies. So I commend him for that. He also keeps his comic books cheaper than everybody else too. So I appreciate the value that Todd gives us with his products. The products aren't always great though. I haven't loved some of the figures in the past. He does some weird scale, some weird articulation. But lately he seems to be going pretty good. I think his DC figures are improving all the time, and his current Spawn figures are pretty nice as well. So let's take a look at this guy. I think for accessories, he just came with the chains and the little Mortal Kombat display base with one peg, which seems adequate enough to hold him up. But I do wish that they, came with larger bases so you could display both feet on them. But anyway, so let's take a closer look at the figure. So this is what I was talking about with, he looks like the classic issue 1 Spawn as far as the costume goes. Like, it looks like he's supposed to be a superhero in tights, which is what I want. A lot of times when they portray Spawn now, his costume, it's like he's got a living costume, and sometimes they just kind of over texturalize it. So like in the comic books, he often has teeth showing through his mask, and some of the other figures they kind of sculpt, you can kind of see the teeth in the black and everything, and I just don't like that as much. Same as the chest here, it's nice and smooth. You can see like wrinkles sculpted in there, which makes it, I think, pretty clear that he's wearing a costume. But again, all the other Spawn figures in this Mortal Kombat line, they have really like sinewy, fleshy costumes, and I just don't like that look for him. It's more like what you saw in the live action Spawn movie and stuff, which, again, I don't think it's terrible. It's just not what I prefer. In fact, I would say his cape is the one element on this figure that I don't love, in that it keeps that really overly textured design, where I would like to see it just be nice and smooth. But that's a minor gripe. I don't really mind it at all. But yeah, everything looks great. Like, I guess if they wanted to go with metal chains instead of plastic, that might have been a little bit better, but that would probably increase the cost of him. Like, he moves well, got good articulation. I know I said this was like issue 1 Spawn. Some of you might hold me to account for that, because that's not quite true. He didn't have this giant gauntlet and this giant boot when the comic first started, but he's had those for many, many years now, decades even. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty great figure. Like, the cape being kind of soft, you can move that out of the way so it doesn't hinder the articulation. These chain things, you can see it, they just plug in to some holes on his back. And I actually don't really care for them. They didn't look bad there, but I prefer them without them. So I think I'm probably going to display him without the chains hovering around him. But again, that is part of his powers. He can command his like living chains to strike out. So the fact that they would kind of hover around him like Dr. Octopus's tentacles, it's accurate to the comic book. So yeah, he moves well. You can see he's got the double jointed knees and everything like that. So good degree of posability. He can, kick his leg right back there and kick his own butt. But the weird articulation that I was showing Chad is on the shoulders here. It's like this weird ring that floats right around his shoulders. So I don't know if you can really get a good look at that. But yeah, it's just this like I don't know why it's there. Like, I guess it's to hide maybe some open space that would appear. Like if you lift his arm up, maybe you'd see the hollowness. But I just feel there's a better way to do that than to have that weird hovering ring. Just seems weird to me. But again, I don't think it looks necessarily bad. Like, it's not really noticeable. And if it is hiding gaps, I suppose the ring looks better than the gaps. It's again, McFarlane just does some weird stuff, because I've never seen any other toy lines do this, so I'm sure there's a better way. You could have probably just built the torso out farther or something, but that's the way he chose to do it, and I guess so be it. Anyway, the only other thing I want to do with this figure is just do a quick comparison. So I mentioned earlier that I bought the Kickstarter Spawn, which was based on a classic look. And here he is. And it is a great figure. He has got the bright red, which I prefer. He's got the metal chains, which I prefer. His cape, while still textured, it's a little bit more accurate to what you see in the comic book with all these folds. It's not as torn up. He's also got the really big collar, which I think looks great. So it's a better looking figure, but all you can really do with that figure is look at it because this cape is so large and it folds out. And so yeah, it looks great on a shelf, but it is permanently affixed to the figure. So you couldn't really play with this guy. Like if you wanted him to squat on the side of a building like a gargoyle or something, that's just not gonna happen. He's very limited. So yeah, he is a great display piece, but it seems like the other Spawn figures that McFarlane's putting out now are really good action figures that you could play with if you wanted to. They have good articulation. They seem nice and durable for the most part. So yeah, I wanted a Spawn that could kind of fit in with those guys. And I think this guy here is the best one that I've seen to date. So yeah, I would recommend this figure as well. And I'm glad, even though it took me a little while to pick him up, that I finally did. Because yeah, he's pretty cool.
Alright. Another Masters of the Universe Origins figure that I have not opened yet. This is King Hiss. Again, I probably won't go into a lot of detail because I'm probably going to do a separate Masters of the Universe video. So, anyway, so I'll talk about him then. But any thoughts on him while I've got you here? Do you know King Hiss?
Vaguely. Very vaguely.
So, this is one of the ones I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When I think back to my toys as a kid, I felt like I had a lot of He-Man, but really I only had about, I think, 9 figures or so. Like, it actually was a pretty small collection. But King Hiss was one of the ones I had. And the deal with him is that he looks like a guy. So you're like, oh, this is just some dude. But then his body opened up like a shell, and he was a bunch of coiled up snakes.
Yeah.
And his arms, you unsnapped his arms. They were basically sleeves with no backs, and they revealed that he had snake arms. So basically, he's a guy. He's a pile of snakes all wrapped up in a disguise. This one here, they didn't recreate that feature, which is kind of a bummer. Like his body doesn't open up like a shell. Instead, you just take his human half off and you plug in his snaky half, which is what you see there in the package. So he's got, the whole snaky half is over here. So,
that's cool.
It's cool, but it's not as cool as the shell. Just snap it apart. But the benefit of that is now he can have a neck articulation and stuff, whereas the old one, he couldn't move his human head because it was just one solid piece of a shell that opened up. But now he can kind of move more like a regular figure.
I mean, he looks like he's super chill.
Yeah.
Quite the smile on him.
Yeah. No, he's a cool character. I like him a lot, though. So, happy to get an update of him. And I've been kind of getting some of the Snake Men now. Like, I have Cobra Khan, Camo Khan, Ratlore, anybody else up there. But he's the leader of these guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's nice to have the leader of the gang. Now, these last ones, I might do a separate video for these too.
Sure.
So maybe I won't go into a ton of detail. But I got some new Action Force figures. So I got this guy. This is Blowback. Now he's a pretty standard military guy. And I almost didn't buy him. I was like, he might be just too plain for me.
Jeez, that's a really dark box.
Yeah, and that's intentional because there's a film, like when you take this out, there's a plastic film, which he does that to preserve like the quality. I forget why he did it exactly, but when he was putting out his first wave of figures, he said that was an issue when he first got them, is he found that like some of the figures were getting scraped from the front of the plastic or whatever, so he put in a nice, like almost saran wrap sheet inside. So it does make it harder to look into the box.
So that also cuts out the tape and everything too, right?
Yeah.
The figures. Okay.
So yeah, you just peel it right off in one piece, and yeah. So it's actually nice packaging. But if you were a in-box collector, it kind of makes it harder to view the figure because it puts kind of a shield that kind of makes a bit of a glare.
I like the masked face.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that's really cool is that with every figure, they include a masked head. So if you want to just turn this guy into kind of more of a generic trooper type, you can do that. One thing that's kind of fun about this guy is he's got a file card on the back, just like G.I. Joe's have. And this guy has Asperger's syndrome, so they just kind of gave him a little quirk.
Huh. That's cool.
So it's like, all right. But anyway, if they keep making a bunch of figures like him, and this is not a knock on this figure, but I will probably stop buying them because part of the thing I like about G.I. Joe is the fantastical elements, and I don't really like real-world military. But one of my figures of the year last year was the Action Force figure Trigger.
Yeah.
And if you remember, I told you I almost didn't buy him because he was too real-world military. And he really surprised me, which is why I ended up buying him. I'm like, maybe I'll give this guy a chance. Maybe he'll really surprise me too. So there's Blowback. And the other guy I got is the Swarm Sentry.
I like him.
So the Swarm, these guys are kind of the most sci-fi element of Action Force thus far. So the first Swarm Trooper was black and yellow because they have like a bumblebee motif. And then they did the Scarab Trooper also in black and yellow, and then they did the Wasp Raider, which was a repaint of the Swarm Trooper in green, and now they've given us this black and gold version. So it's a repaint of an existing figure, but
I'm a fan of the mask though, like the insect eyes.
Yeah, he's got that kind of honeycomb pattern on his eyes. It's cool.
That's cool. I like this guy.
Yeah, the Swarm Trooper was, I think, my number 2 figure of the year in 2021. So I really like this. It's kind of, this is the third time I've got the mold now, so it's starting to get a little diminished. But it's a cool figure. And, so I'm excited to get another version of it. So this is a small wave of figures because you might notice, I know you're not a big Action Force guy, but they all have similar packaging where it's all gray. It's supposed to look like steel here. But these ones here, they've got this kind of flaming black and red packaging. That's to distinguish it. That is part of this specific wave, which they call the Special Deployment, I think. So it's not considered wave 1, 2, or 3. This is between wave 2 and 3, Special Deployment. And what it was they added a couple of new figures. So Blowback is a brand new character. This is Swarm Sentry, is a repaint of the old Swarm Trooper. And then the other figures in this wave were just straight up re-releases of figures that were sold out. So they re-released the Steel Brigade, and I think they re-released, might have been the original Swarm Trooper again. But I didn't buy those ones because I got them in the first go-around. So the only thing that's changed is the packaging. So small little wave. But there was one other thing I bought from this. This is the least exciting thing in the whole box.
Okay.
But it's part of this set. So Valiverse sells figures, but they also sell accessory packs and whatnot. So I bought this Steel Brigade gear pack. So this is not an actual action figure. What it shows you on the back of the package what you get. So you get a new Steel Brigade helmet, some guns, a new vest. But the reason I bought this is it's affordable compared to the other figures. Like, it's probably still maybe a little overpriced, but I think this was like $15 American, so it probably cost me 20 something Canadian. And there's not a whole lot in there. And I don't even really care about the guns because I already have a bag full of extra guns and stuff. But that helmet is what I like.
Yeah.
Because I have a nice little squad of Steel Brigade that I bought from him already. And this is a repaint of the helmet in green. So what I can do is, because I bought like multiples of the Steel Brigade figure originally, like identical figure, I bought it like 3 times. And so by swapping one of the heads out with the green helmet, it allows me to just kind of take one of my existing duplicates and spice them up and make them feel like an individual rather than just another, more of the same.
That's some cool box art too.
Yeah, he does a really good job with the box art, and he does comic books. There's a novel that somebody has written to tie in Action Force, and he says he's working on a movie.
Okay, that'd be kind of interesting.
So yeah, if you haven't heard of Action Force yet, stay tuned because it might. Yeah, and who knows? I've heard lots of people say they're working on movies and they fizzle out, things don't happen. But yeah, this could be a brand that really blows up in the coming years. So I really appreciate the effort he puts into the backstory and everything that he's creating.
And they're still not retail, are they? It's only...
No, like you can buy them at his website, which is Valiverse.com.
And Big Bad Toy Store.
and Big Bad, and probably a couple other retailers here and there, but just online retailers, not I don't think any retail locations. So I think that's it. Like, this is going to cut off. So do you want to just do our goodbyes before my thing cuts out? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Or?
No, nothing
Okay.
this time. That was really abrupt.
That sounds good.
Not this time. No. So, yeah, if you liked the video, liked what we had to say, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment.
Comment below.
Leave us comments. We love those.
Yes. So yeah, watch our next video. We'll be back sometime soon. All right. Ciao.
Keep collecting.